Chapter 197, Forged One Stone. Kang Xuan, you've worked really hard, coming to Dark Gold Peak for so long you didn't even come to the contribution hall until now. No wonder the law enforcement elder has taken a liking to you. Elder Wang's eyes lit up when he saw Kang Xuan, who walked in. Kang Xuan was slightly stunned. Then he understood that this elder must have known his identity through other means. After all, the other party was an elder of the Heavenly Tao sect, so naturally, there were some doorways. Elder Wang, it's my first time here. I don't know anything. Please teach me more, Kang Xuan respectfully said. Ha ha ha, old man naturally understands. Come, I'll tell you about the procedures of the contribution hall. Elder Wang laughed out loud as he personally led Kang Xuan to a crystal wall. This is the contribution wall. As long as you probe your divine thoughts into it, you will be able to search for all the Heavenly Tao sect's exotic treasures that can be seen within your authority. Elder Wang pointed at the white crystal wall and said, "So magical." Kang Xuan was surprised at what he heard. He followed what Elder Wang said and probed his divine thoughts into the crystal wall. His eyes closed, and a huge wave of information came pouring in. Magic treasures, pills, techniques, divine abilities, spells, heaven and earth spiritual essences, and so on. One by one, the categories appeared clearly in front of him, and there was a lot of information in each category. Kang Xuan randomly chose the elixir category, and instantly the elixirs related to those that could be taken at the Qi practicing stage, Foundation Establishment stage, Jidan stage, and Yuanying stage levels all appeared in front of him. Among them were Kang Xuan's familiar 3 turns Golden Pill, 9 turns Great Restoration Pill, Foundation Establishment Pill, Return to Origin Pill, etc. There were too many different kinds of subtle pills. Moreover, each of these pills had a price tag of contribution points at the back. Like a 3 turns Gold Pill would require 30 contribution points, and the Foundation Building Pill was 10 contribution points, and the price tag of each of these pills was clear and unambiguous. After looking at these pills, Kang Xuan's divine thoughts withdrew, and Elder Wang, who was on the side, greeted him with a smile and said, "How is it? This crystal wall is for you to view the information. If you see something you fancy, tell the old man directly, and I will help you exchange it. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have enough contribution points. It's truly magical. Elder Wang, please get busy first. I'll take another look." Kang Xuan smiled. "Good. If you need anything, just look for me." Elder Wang smiled all over his face as he said this, and was very polite to Kang Xuan, as he was clear that this youth's future achievements would definitely be above his, and it was natural to have a good relationship at a time like this. After Elder Wang left, Kang Xuan's divine thoughts once again probed into the contribution wall. This time he looked through every single classification for more than 10 days. In these 10 days or so, his insights had thoroughly broadened a lot. Not only did he recognize the respective marvelous pills, as well as all kinds of heavenly materials and treasures, and some divine abilities, spells, and techniques. Kang Xuan was like a sponge, constantly absorbing the cultivation knowledge recorded in the contribution wall. Through these days, he knew that different Heavenly Tao sect disciples saw different contents of the contribution wall, and that the general Jidan stage could only view the contents of the Jidan stage portion. However, Kang Xuan was a disciple of the law enforcement elder and had greater authority, and could know the contents of the Yuanying stage portion in advance, which allowed him to see quite a few marvelous things. Among them, there was one heaven and earth spiritual essence that was very appealing to Kang Xuan, and that was the one that could allow a Jidan stage cultivator to comprehend the intentions, the Tao Enlightenment Leaf. Enlightenment Leaf. Kang Xuan's eyes lit up. This thing could allow a Jidan stage cultivator to comprehend intent. What did this mean? But what was the biggest challenge for any Jidan stage cultivator to advance to the Yuanying stage? It was the idea Any Jiden stage 9th level peak cultivator could only break through the ushering stage after comprehending the idea. If one cannot comprehend the idea, it is impossible to break through to the ushering stage. For cultivators, as long as there is enough time, they can cultivate to the peak of the 9th level of the Jiden stage. But the different qualifications of individuals, not every cultivator can comprehend the idea in the Jiden stage. And some of them did not comprehend the idea until their life expectancy was exhausted, and they died tragically at the peak level of the 9th level of the Jiden stage. The enlightenment leaf was what gave these people a chance to advance to the ushering stage. If we have this, Grandpa will definitely be able to break through the ushering stage. Kang Qian's eyes were glowing. He had already comprehended intent long ago, and had reached 50% of his realm. So this enlightenment leaf was useless to him. However, his grandfather Wang Tixiong had low qualifications. Even with his help, he didn't know how long it would take for him to comprehend intent. If he had this enlightenment leaf, his grandfather would soon be able to comprehend intent and break through to the Jiden stage. Now that he had 10,000 contribution points, he could always exchange them for enough triple transformation gold pills for his grandpa, and could completely raise his grandpa's cultivation to the peak level of the 9th level of the Jiden stage. When that time came, coupled with this enlightenment leaf, Grandpa's breakthrough to the ushering stage would be just around the corner. Kang Qian was very excited in his heart. If Grandpa could break through the ushering stage, he would be completely relieved. After all, when a cultivator reaches the ushering stage, it can be said that his lifespan is endless. As long as he is not killed, then he is an immortal existence. At that time, he could also feel at ease cultivating in the Heavenly Tao sect without having to worry about Grandpa. Thinking of this, Kang Qian couldn't help but look at the price tag of the enlightenment leaf. 500 contribution points. This was the price tag of the enlightenment leaf. Kang Qian couldn't help but smack his lips. While the third transformation gold pill was only 30 points, the enlightenment leaf was a full 500 points, equivalent to more than 100 third transformation gold pills. After coming to the Heavenly Tao sect for so long, he already knew how precious contribution points were. Last time, he passed the test on the 7th floor of the Demon Locking Tower, so he was gifted 10,000 contribution points, which was the Heavenly Tao sect's reward for a top genius like him. However, after knowing the rules of the Heavenly Tao sect's earning contribution points, Kang Qian knew that it was very difficult to earn every single contribution point, and that there were some tough sect missions that were completed that only yielded a dozen or so contribution points. Like these 500 contribution points, an ordinary outer sect disciple would need to accumulate them for more than 10 years to save enough. However, for the sake of Grandpa, Kang Qian still gritted his teeth and exchanged it for this enlightenment leaf, storing him in the reverse heavenly cauldron and waiting until he was promoted to inner sect disciple before going back and handing it over to Grandpa. After solving Grandpa's problem, Kang Qian was completely relieved. Next he should think about himself. There were still 9,500 contribution points left. He wanted to exchange it for something to enhance his strength. Magic treasures. Kang Qian shook his head. He already had the blood knife given to him by his elder senior brother. It was a king-grade treasure weapon. Although it had been sealed by his elder senior brother and could only exert 1/10,000th of its power at the moment, it was still comparable to a normal lower-grade treasure weapon and was enough for him to use. When elder senior brother gave him the blood blade, in order to fear that he would rely too much on this treasure blade, he placed a 40% seal, causing this king-grade treasure weapon to only be able to exert 1/10,000th of its power. Kang Qian did not care about this, and he was absolutely sure that it was not good to rely on the treasure weapon too much. If he was not facing a strong enemy in life and death, he decided that he would not show the blood blade easily, and would continue to use the long black blade first. What's more, Kang Xuan had cultivated the 9-turned Xuan. His physical body was very powerful. Even if he didn't use a magic treasure, he could still stand proudly against strong people of the same level. So naturally, he didn't need any magic treasures. He continued to look on. Divine power. Kang Xuan still shook his head. With divine abilities such as the Overlord Fist, Heaven Escaping Hand, and Star Absorbing Technique, did he still lack divine abilities? The answer was no. He was not lacking any divine abilities now that he had created his own blade technique. As for those low-level spells, he was even more disdainful of them. In addition, there were also some cultivation-enhancing pills, but the current him did not want to break through the yuanying stage, and had been suppressing his cultivation, so naturally he did not need these pills. After thinking about it, Kang Xuan felt that he could increase his strength into main areas right now. One was intent. He had already reached 50% of the realm. If he could raise it up some more, his strength would definitely be even more powerful. Then, it was the cultivation of his physical body. Kang Xuan needed to practice the second and third layers of the 9-turned Xuan as soon as possible. The law enforcement elder had reminded him that he could only break through the yuanying stage if he cultivated the 9 revolutions Xuan to the 4th layer. Otherwise it would be difficult for the 9 revolutions Xuan to advance any further in the future. The 4th layer of the 9 revolutions Xuan was equivalent to the yuanying stage, and it was obvious that the only way to step into the yuanying stage was to let one's physical body enter the yuanying stage level first before one's cultivation could step into the yuanying stage. In fact, it was not just the yuanying stage. The later realms were all the same. The physical body had to go ahead of the cultivation. Otherwise it would be difficult to cultivate the 9 revolutions Xuan again. However, as of now, Kang Xuan did not need external forces to help cultivate the 9 revolutions Xuan. After all, he had the talent of Kang Xuan hegemony blood, and was already fast at cultivating the 9 revolutions Xuan. Plus the dragon blood Dan that Emperor Dan would soon successfully refine. He believed that it would not be long before he would be able to cultivate the 9 revolutions Xuan to the 4th layer. Therefore, these contribution points might as well be used to exchange for some exotic treasures that could enhance his intention. Kang Xuan still remembered that ambition from before. He wanted to raise his intention to the 10th realm before the yuanying stage, thus comprehending the will. Although this ambition was difficult to realize, he still had some hopes. Kang Xuan scanned the contribution wall for relevant exotic treasures and searched for a heaven and earth spiritual essences that could raise his will. And soon, it really did allow him to find a treasure that could raise the realm of will. This treasure is called the Immortal Tao Stone, according to the information recorded on it. This Immortal Tao Stone is an immortal stone born from heaven and earth, which contains the Tao source. When cultivating, hanging it above the head, it can enhance the speed of comprehending ideas. Generally speaking, after the Tao source of an Immortal Tao Stone is exhausted, it can help the cultivator to raise a layer of ideas, unless your talent is extremely poor. However, this kind of Immortal Tao Stone only has the best effect for the first time. After more times, the effect will gradually diminish. Coupled with this kind of immortal stone is very precious. Very few people can afford to use it. After all, those who needed this kind of immortal stone were some Jiden stage and yuanying stage cultivators, for whom the Immortal Tao Stone was very precious. What a good thing. I wonder how many contribution points it requires. Kang Xuan's eyes glowed. Then he immediately checked the price of this Immortal Tao Stone. And soon, his eyes widened with an expression of flesh pain. The price of one Immortal Tao Stone surprisingly required 5,000 contribution points, which meant that he could only exchange for one Immortal Tao Stone only right now. And the effect of the second Immortal Tao Stone was already much worse, and it was simply impossible to help him raise another layer of intentions. I'm afraid that not many of the outer disciples at the Jidan stage can afford to use this. Kang Xuan shook his head with a bitter smile. The first Immortal Dao Stone could help you raise a layer of intent, so generally speaking, most would choose to exchange it. But the second time you took an Immortal Dao Stone, the effect would be much worse. And it might even require 4 or 5 Immortal Dao Stones to raise another layer of intent, which would cost even more contribution points. And who amongst the Jidan and Yuanying stages of the cultivation could afford to spend them? Even though Immortal Dao Stones were very expensive, Kang Xuan still exchanged one for another. So he was left with only 4,500 contribution points, using up half of his contribution points all of a sudden, causing him great pain. Getting the Immortal Dao Stone from Elder Wong, Kang Xuan left the contribution hall. He was afraid that, if he looked further, he would not be able to resist using his remaining contribution points again. One must know that it was easy to spend money and hard to make money. After leaving the contribution hall, Kang Xuan continued to wander around, and soon he saw a large green-colored hall. What surprised him a little was that there were very few disciples from the law enforcement lineage above Dark Gold Peak. But this grand hall had quite a few law enforcement disciples gathered within it, and it was the most lively place above Dark Gold Peak that he had ever seen. Power Xuan Hall. Kang Xuan looked at the door plaque of the Grand Hall. A bright light flashed in his eyes. He couldn't help but remember that, after meeting the law enforcement elders back then, Third Senior Brother Deadly Current had reminded him to come to the Power Xuan Hall when he had time to have a look. What exactly is the mystery of this great hall that has attracted so many law enforcement disciples to gather here?